Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, May 14th, 2015. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, Mark Jockers from Clean Water Services and Jeremie Landers from the Oregon Brew Crew will talk about the Pure Water Brew Challenge, turning treated effluent into tasty beer. If you're new to home brewing and would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. You can follow me on Twitter. My username is Basic Brewing, all one word. We also have a Basic Brewing Radio and Basic Brewing Video page on Facebook at facebook.com/basicbrewing. We're on the Google Plus as well. Thanks to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. Whenever you think of Amazon shopping, you know what to do. Go to our website first, basicbrewing.com. Click on our Amazon link on the right-hand side of the page. It'll take you back to Amazon where you can shop as you normally do. It won't cost you any extra, and you'll be helping us to bring you the show. We greatly appreciate your support. We also have associate links for Brew Your Own Magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site as well. You can find our Basic Brewing iPhone app on iTunes, our Android app on Amazon.com. We have a Windows Phone app. We're on the BlackBerry podcast directory, and we're on the Stitcher app as well. If you want to put a tip in our tip jar, some coinage in our guitar case, you can go to basicbrewing.com/support, and thanks to everybody who's done so already. We had a lot of fun at the Fayetteville Foam Fest this past week. Saturday it was. It was wet at times as the rain came and went, but man, it was a lot of fun. We spent a lot of time with our friends Casey and Jen, and Andy was out there too, and I saw members of the local homebrew club, Flops, out there as well. But and all the local breweries were represented out there, including a new cidery that's coming into Northwest Arkansas. I hope to talk to them soon. And also, there are some new craft beers, new to us, coming into the area, like Victory is starting to come into Northwest Arkansas for the first time. And so, anyway, it was a lot of fun. It's a fitting start to the Northwest Arkansas Beer Week and Craft Beer Week, which is going on across the country as well, by the way. My own personal brewing update, I brewed a Belgian-style ale yesterday. And while I did that, I tried the Periscope Twitter app thingy for live streaming video, and I streamed some live video as I was beside the brew pot, and a few dozen of you tuned in. It seemed to work pretty well, so we'll probably be streaming some stuff while we're out in San Diego for the National Homebrewers Conference. So keep your Twitter feed up while we're out there, and I'll try to tweet and stream some interesting stuff while we're out there, if my battery power on my phone survives. And that, talking about San Diego, reminds me to remind you that we'll be taking June off from posting the podcast. And I might sneak an episode of Basic Brewing Video out there next month if Steve and I have time to get together to record one. Steve and I have just been wrapped up in other things lately and haven't been able to shoot video as much as we want. But we do have projects and experiments to talk about. We just need the time to get together to shoot them. So let's enough excuse making. Let's jump into the mailbag, shall we? Matt from Cleveland writes after hearing our episode featuring the ginger wasabi beer. Matt says, "Fun fact: you can eat almost any amount of wasabi if you hold your nose until it's completely swallowed." Assuming the wasabi is swallowed, not your nose. Sorry, Matt. Matt says, "I lived in Japan for a few years, and they had a morning TV show segment where the hosts took turns swallowing teaspoons of wasabi paste this way with no ill effect." Now, to prove his point, Matt made a video for YouTube showing Matt sitting at the dinner table holding his nose and eating a whole big glob of wasabi. And I posted that video on our Facebook page, so check that out. I don't want to spoil it for you, but he was doing it at the dinner table in front of his kids, and I do enjoy the teenage reaction coming from the other end of the table. It's a very familiar expression. having two teenage sons myself. And that's something I'll probably try. As Elbert Fudd, I'll probably try next time I go sushi eating. Chris from Rockwell, North Carolina writes, I listened to your sour beer cider hybrids episode yesterday evening while mowing my lawn. One lemon meringue pie later, my pregnant wife would like to say thank you and requests that you discuss beers that remind you of the following in future episodes. Cheesecake, cookout milkshakes, apparently a regional drive-through place. Chris says the best chocolate malts by far, barbecue-baked Lay's, banana pudding, and Godiva chocolate. So they are talking about homemade lemon meringue pie inspired Chris to buy one, apparently, and much to the delight of his wife. So there you go. Congratulations, Chris, and best wishes on your growing family there. Also, after that episode, Bye T Hi on Twitter says, in Scotland, we call a beer/cider post-fermentation blend a snake bite. Put a cherry in it, and we'd call it a cocktail. I think I've seen snake bites on menus in places. And I got to thinking about that show as well after I posted that episode, and I got to thinking that you might loosely call what we were sipping Graff, maybe because Graff is a mixture of beer with some cider in it, and fruit juices and some such, and we've talked about that Graff on the show as well. But you know how it goes. My mind is like a leaky sieve, so I forget those kinds of things, especially when I'm on the porch drinking beer with Steve. Wayne in South Windsor, Connecticut writes, I just listened to the March 5th, 2015 Superior Bathhouse Brewing episode. It is your best episode ever. I followed along online and studied the water profile while John Palmer explained the impact of the water profile. The Bathhouse Brewery is a very interesting story and novelty. I don't have a recipe that starts mashing at 140 degrees, but it would start with a saison. The low mash temp with 90-degree mash will give a fermentable wort. A key point of saison is the bone-dry finish, which this low temp should give. Then Rose's imagination can run wild and ferment with local wild yeasts and local fruits. Perhaps target a sour beer or farmhouse beer style for the low mashing temperature. I think Mike Tonsmeyer would be a good person to interview along with Rose to get his thoughts on a sour style that would work for her brewery. I guess I should have explained before I started reading that letter that Rose Schweikart was wanting to brew something with a strike water temperature of around 140 degrees because that's the temperature that the hot water is when it comes into their brewery right out of the ground. Wayne finishes his letter by saying, I'm currently experimenting with mashing IPAs, starting at 149 degrees and letting the temperature drop during the 60 to 90-minute mash down to the mid-140 degrees. This is all Fahrenheit. Sorry. 140 is about 60 C. This gives me a dry finish on the IPA, which blends well with aromatic IPAs that are not bitter. These give the impression of a light beer, and it appeals to female drinkers, who want aroma, flavor, but not the bitterness of IPA. I know. They're female. I know. I'm knowing more and more female beer drinkers who like bitterness. Bitter beers. Appreciate it, Wayne. I shared Wayne's note with Rose Schweikart of Superior Bathhouse Brewing, and Rose gave us a quick update via email. Rose says, we did actually try a low-temperature mash on a blonde stout. Ooh, interesting. Basically, 4% brown malt and 8 pounds of cacao nibs in a base with Maris Otter and a little two-row. The water was 138 degrees that day, and we hit a mash temperature of 132 on the bottom and 129 on top of the tun. After 45 minutes, we attempted a recirculation mash, but it turned into more of a decoction. We will simply decoct next time because our setup is easy for that, and did 20 minutes at 152 when I added the brown malt and cacao, and 15 minutes at 158 to 160. No mash out. Sparged at 168, 60-minute boil, and Newport and Fuggle hops, California ale yeast. It's currently cold conditioning and carbing, and it is delicious. Rose says, I wanted to try the lower temperature with the Maris Otter because I've read that you get a great protein and nice biscuit flavor. I'm very pleased with the result. Can't wait to pour a proper pint. I like the idea of a Saison. We're about to do a warm temperature Saison in an uncooled tank. Perhaps I will try some of Wayne's ideas. Very cool. That's excellent. I need to get back to Hot Springs to visit my family soon, and I will definitely pay another visit to the Superior Bathhouse Brewery. And one more piece of email. I got an email from Ian Hill, who's director of the Heritage and Archaeological Research Practice in Edinburgh, Scotland, or HARP. And you may remember we talked to Ian about a project that they found, they unearthed in Cyprus that they theorized was part of an ancient brewing setup, where it was a structure that they think was used to malt grain, essentially. Ian says, I hope you're well and that your brewing is still going strong. It is, Ian. Thank you very much. Says, we are headed back out to Cyprus this summer for a final season of experimental Bronze Age brewing, and I was wondering if you might be able to circulate our project again whenever possible. We still have some places left available and would love to have some beer enthusiasts join us this year. So if you are a beer enthusiast with an interest in archaeology and want to spend part of your summer on Cyprus, go to HARP I hope you can pronounce it better than I. harparchaeology.co.uk. Let me try that again. harparchaeology.co.uk, and check that out. That does sound like a lot of fun. Now let's talk for a minute about our continuing sponsors, Desiree and Dave from High Gravity Brewing in Tulsa. High Gravity's Build Your Own Beer feature on highgravitybrew.com lets you select all your ingredients from one page, including adjuncts, yeast, priming options, fruit flavorings, and purees. You can even name your beer on that same page. Now, I've played with this thing, and it's really cool. It's got this long list of ingredients, which is very impressive. It's got to be everything in the store. And you click on a checkbox beside each ingredient that you want, enter the amount, and at the bottom of the page, there's a running total that you can see all the time of what your beer will cost. Very cool. And High Gravity offers flat rate shipping of $7.99 on most items. And if you're new to brewing, High Gravity has a build-your-own starter kit that lets you add onto the base equipment kit, again, all on one page. Desiree and Dave know about this kind of stuff because they come from a technology background, and it shows. So check it out at highgravitybrew.com. Now, Steve Wilkes forwarded me a link to a story online about our topic today. Clean Water Services up in Portland is holding a brewing competition to demonstrate their water purification technology and to start a conversation about water as a resource, as a renewable, reusable resource. And I called up Mark Jockers and Jeremie Landers to talk about it. Now, I have to say that Mark's Skype connection got a little crazy, and he started to sound like a Dalek at one point and then got cut off. So we paused, and I called him through Skype on his landline. So be ready for that little interruption. Also, if your kids speak German, this interview is rated PG. Mark Jockers, welcome to Basic Brewing Radio.
Thank you very much, James.
And Jeremie Landers, welcome to Basic Brewing Radio as well.
Thank you kindly, James.
Now, Mark, you are from Clean Water Services, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And Jeremie, you are from the Oregon Brew Crew. And I have a history with the Oregon Brew Crew because Andy and I, when we were going up there for Hop Madness in 2009, Josh Blender, who was the communications guy at the time, invited us to a meeting, and there we did an interview with Shane Watterson, who was the education chair at the time, and we did an interview with Fred Eckhart up there.
Yeah.
And we had a great time. So
yeah, it's funny. Shane Watterson now, he was an assistant brewer at Laurelwood. Now he's the head brewer because Vasily Galetsos took off to the East Coast, and Vasily's now working at Hill Farmstead. And he also used to be Vasily used to be a past education chair as well. Fred, his birthday is coming up next week. I believe he's going to be 89.
Wow.
90. Yeah.
Well, great.
Fred Fest just happened.
Good for him. Wish him happy birthday for us. He won't remember who we are, probably.
No,
but...
well, he barely remembers who I am. Yeah.
He's met a few people in his time.
Indeed.
But you were saying before we started the recorder that you had a story about me or something to say about me.
Yeah, about you. It's kind of strange. Back when I'd say maybe around 2005, 2006, back when I was just learning that you could actually brew your own beer, I had picked up a friend of mine had given me a copy of Homebrewing for Dummies, and I'd also picked up a copy of course, the Papazian Bible, as we all know, the Joy of Homebrewing, and I was reading through Homebrewing for Dummies, just thinking, wow, this is really fun. I know I could do this. I just want to get some more opinions on this, and I don't really know anybody because I wasn't in a homebrew club yet. So what did I do? I checked out on the internet, and I found, what's this? Basic Brewing Radio. Oh, let me check this out. It's a podcast. I can fit this on my phone. I can listen to, who's this James Spencer hooligan? Let's find this out. So so it was, and that was pretty much the first time that I ever really knew that there was some kind of camaraderie behind brewing and home brewing, and that there was more than just a regional interest, but that others were very excited in helping other people learn more about how to home brew and improve your brews. And so this is kind of an interesting full circle. I've met and know Rob Widmer personally, and Fred Eckhart is in our homebrew club, but the fact that James Spencer actually contacted me to do an interview is really, really cool. I have to admit.
There's that flattery you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's true.
and your check will be in the mail soon, Jeremy.
Thank you, sir.
You did very well. You read that script very well.
Line and letter.
Well, we should talk about the experiment that you guys are doing, and I guess for the background we should go to Mark. Talk a bit about your company and what you do and what this experiment is.
Clean Water Services is a water resource utility that serves about 500,000 people west of Portland. And we clean about 60 million gallons of wastewater a day before we return it to the river. We also have a very big reuse program providing irrigation water and things like that. About a year and a half ago, Art Lawrence, who's kind of the godfather of craft brewing here in Oregon, who serves on our advisory commission, we were trying to think about how we could start a conversation about reuse water. And Art, being a brewer, said, you can't have a conversation without a beer. So he said, why don't you try to make beer out of that water? And that was our goal, is to take this water that comes out of the back of our treatment plants, then we run it through a high-purity water system, and then we're providing that water to the Oregon Brew Crew. And we've been, as Jeremie can testify, we've been very, very successful in terms of, we didn't start a conversation, I think we ignited one. Because we have gotten media inquiries from around the world, both Jeremie and I, and it's really, really engaged.
So we got cut off, and now we've got Mark back on the phone. And you were saying that this has really ignited a bunch of attention.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of this project, is really to start a conversation about the nature of water. And there's no better way to have a conversation than over a beer. And that's really been very clear to us. And a lot of what we're trying to do here, James, is to get people to, the oohs and ahs of this is, oh, you're making beer out of sewage water. But what we're really trying to do is that we need to judge water based on its quality and not on its history. Because, to be perfectly honest, all water is reused water. All the water we consume today, all the beer we consume today, will be consumed again in the future and was consumed previously. It's a closed system. And people, I think the light is starting to go on. As we talk about it in this way, thanks to the leadership of the Oregon Brew Crew and the other folks that have been involved in this, we've really advanced that conversation.
Now, what kind of technology are we talking about here? How do you take "quote unquote" used water and make it to where it is potable, or is it potable on the other side? Could you just pour a glass of it and drink it?
Well, that's a great question. It is significantly more than potable. What we're doing is we're taking water out of the back of our treatment plant, which would normally go back to the river, which is very, very clean already. But then we're putting it through a 4-step high-purity water system of reverse osmosis and oxidation and ultrafiltration and disinfection. And what we end up with is this very, very pure water, significantly cleaner than anything that comes out of your tap. In fact, we've said this is the cleanest water on the planet. When we made it last year and this year, you taste it, and Jeremie can testify to this too. You taste it, and it's really got a very blank taste.
Oh, yeah, it's
and I think that it's very empty. It doesn't have much to it, which I think is part of what we're showing is that the technology is there to produce water for any purpose. And I think the attraction from a brewing perspective is they can create whatever water profile they want to fit the beer they want to make.
Yeah, that's true. If you don't mind me jumping in real quick here, when we first got our water pails, and I was just kind of curious because I was brewing with my wife, and she said, "Well, what does that taste like?" I said, "Well, honey, I'd imagine it tastes like water." But then again, as it had been touted, it is purest water on earth. So might as well try it. So I tasted it, and I said, "Wow, I'm really glad I'm adding minerals and salt into this, because otherwise, my beer would really, really not come out properly." And knowing now what I didn't know when I first started brewing, yeah, you really need those minerals and salts for some specific types of beers, or else it just won't taste right.
So is this essentially distilled water without it actually being distilled?
Essentially, yeah. It's even more treatment than that. But you're right; it does have almost that distilled water taste to it, because it doesn't have any of those minerals or salts in it.
So is it basically just pure water? I mean, just H2O molecules and nothing else?
Based on the assessment, so we ran a bunch of tests on this, both to see if it complied with safe drinking water standards, U.S. safe drinking water standards, which it did, but then ran a whole other set of battery of tests that have been put together by the National Water Research Institute to look at what they call direct potable reuse water, to see if we could see anything else in there, pharmaceuticals, personal care products, any sort of things that we do see in the environment. And in fact, those were all non-detect too. So I wouldn't say it's just H2O, because there's no such thing as zero, but it's as close as you can get to pure H2O, at least on this planet.
Now, Jeremie, was there a mental block? Was there something that you had to get over, or other members of the Oregon Brew Crew? Is there something that you had to get past in order to drink the water for the first time?
Well, as you very well know, James, we're home brewers. We like to experiment, and especially in the Northwest and in Portland particularly, we are very experimental with our brews. And when I first heard about the Clean Water Challenge, I was excited. There was nothing that I had to get through. All I wanted to know was, okay, it's clean? Okay, how clean? Okay, good. It's cleaner than any other tap water on Earth. Does it have any chemicals, any hormones? No. Okay, great. So what does it have in it? Oh, extremely trace minerals. I'm going to have to modify this water. So it was really a matter of, okay, I've got a clean slate. I've got a blank canvas to work with, and I just need to add stuff to it. So really there wasn't any mental block. There were admittedly people that were outside of the competition who were like, yeah, no thanks. They do have some bits of, well, that's Sewage Brewage, and you got your PP pills, and you're like, no, not really. I think that if you do, you do break it back down, as Mark was saying. All water is recycled. Literally, every water is a very closed system, and we'll never get away from the water that we will always drink over and over and over again, whether it be super ultra purified by whatever systems we are using now or in the future, or if it's purified by the environment or the earth. It's the same water, and it's going to reclaim and recycle itself if we don't do it.
When you said PP Pilsner, I immediately went to Poo Poo Porter and.
Now wait a minute.
We could go on forever, but I think my favorite is IPA.
I got to tell you,
we get a lot of traction out of that one.
How family friendly is this, James?
It's pretty family friendly.
I can tell you what I called mine, but it's in a different language.
Okay.
You can edit it out if it's not appropriate. I called mine. It's a German Pilsner, and it was lovely, really, really good. I was very, very impressed by it. When I entered it into the competition, I called it "Keine Scheiße Pils." Now, if you don't know what that means, you can obviously put that into Google Translate. There's a story behind that too, but yeah, you can edit this out too if you don't really want to. Want to have it in there. But a friend of mine came over and we were talking about the water challenge. I said, I'm making this German pills, and she was telling me about these biotics, these new biotics that they triple coat, but these biotics are made out of actual human feces. And so, but you take them, they go into your stomach, so you're never actually, it's not on your tongue. You'll never taste the poop. But I said, no pills, man. No pills. As in pills, P-I-L-L-S. But she looked at me, she said, that's the name of your beer. I'm like, oh my God. German. Keine Scheiße. Okay, got it done.
That is good.
Anyway, so that's where that came from, but I'm sure you're going to edit that out.
Well, there may be some beeping involved.
Okay, that's fair.
It's too good of a story. Yeah, Mark, you've got to have a thick skin to be in this kind of industry and hear all. I'm sure you hear all these. I worked for a couple of summers in a funeral home when I was in college, and so I've heard all of those jokes. So I'm sure you hear all those jokes as well.
We certainly do.
But, one way that you get over these barriers is to make it fun. And so, humor tends to break down barriers, and then you have a real conversation about what's going on. But you're right. I mean, here in Northwest Arkansas, we have Beaver Lake, which is the water source, and then some of the effluent from Fayetteville goes into Beaver Lake. So people are basically recycling the water. And people on the space station are recycling their water as well. And if you read the Dune books or see those movies, you had the suits that where people did it as well. So last year, you guys talk about what you did last year, because you're going kind of a step further this year, Mark.
Well, I'll tell you, James, what we did last year is the challenge associated with trying to do this is really it's a three-legged stool. You've got a technology leg, you've got a regulatory leg, and you've got a mindset. I'm focusing on the mindset. That we're trying to get people to think about water differently. We've got the technology figured out. It's used. I mean, we've used it here. It's already used in California and Australia and Singapore. This is not new technology. We can make whatever we want in terms of quality of water. The other leg of the stool that was challenging for us is a regulatory leg, and not all states are ready to embrace this. They don't have the regulatory framework in place. So last year when we wanted to do this, the regulators would not allow us to use 100% effluent out of the back of our treatment plant. So what we did is we went directly into the river where we discharge our effluent, and we took the water out of there because our river is very, very small, so we have about 30% effluent. So last year we talked about how we made 30 EBV instead of ABV. It was 30 EBV, effluent by volume. And the regulators were fine because once the water goes into the river, there's kind of this zone of amnesia where everybody forgets that it's come out of the back of a treatment plant. So the regulations were fine. This year's effort is really to go to 100 EBV, where we take the water directly out of the back of the treatment plant before we put it through our high-purity water system. So there's none of that zone of amnesia. You're right there connected to it. Last year's effort was terrific, as Jeremie talked about with what he made. We had 13 brewers that made 16 beers. This year, working with OBC, we're hopeful that we get 20 or 25 brewers that'll enter this year.
And were the beers good?
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I mean, this is one of the tough parts of my job here, working at the water utility, is I have to go to the beer tasting competition. So, particularly on a hot day in September here in Oregon, I had lots of employees that were volunteering to serve on the panel. So yes, the beer was excellent, and we took the 4 best kegs. These were these Cornelius kegs. We took them down to New Orleans last year and served them at the Water Environment Federation's national conference, which at a small kind of symposium we put together. And I will tell you, we polished off all 4 of those kegs that night, and we had people lined up wanting to try these different types of beers.
And I can't resist. I let 2 references to 3-legged stools go by without making any comment. So,
wow.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I will tell you, one of the reasons this has been as successful, and you mentioned it, James, is this go around with 100% EBV. We've decided to really embrace the joke factor, the yuck factor, the IPA, the sewage brewage, the poo beer, because it engages people in the conversation, and then pretty quickly we can say they realize that all water's reused. So that's been a real successful effort for us to kind of have some fun with this.
Now, Jeremie, you probably know that beer through history, brewing through history, has been a way to purify water. I mean,
absolutely.
The process of brewing beer, boiling it, letting it ferment, lowering the pH and raising the alcohol content, it makes bad water safe to drink. So,
correct.
So brewing has a history of that already.
That's true. I think that what Clean Water Services is doing, kind of in a way, obviates the need for us to boil. But if we, like Mark was saying, if we get it to a point where people understand, good or bad, people come to this conversation, they have their opinions about it, and they learn, well, it really is absolutely pure water, and all water is recycled. Maybe we will start, looking at it differently and changing our minds. Once you turn to one of the uses for that water, which is, of course, brewing, people would look at that and say, well, you've already, the water's already purified. Why are you boiling it? Oh, there's so many other reasons why we have to do this. And we can give them the, isomerization of hops, no longer is it about sterilization, but it's also about protein break and that kind of thing. We can actually interest people in the brewing process and just show them, this one ingredient, water, is just what it is. It's just water. It's a brewing ingredient. And maybe interest more people in another use for that water, not just brewing beer, but, drinking water. Take a look at California. I mean, they're in a terrible drought right now. And I had a couple of people, one from the Bay Area and one from San Francisco, call me and say, talk to us about this. How can we get this water? Why are you okay with this purified effluent from a treatment plant? And I explained it to them, and they said, wow, this is fantastic. I wonder if we could actually do this down in California. And I'm thinking to myself, it may not necessarily be economically viable currently. Mark could obviously speak to this. But I think that maybe the technology will get to a point where maybe someday, built on a bigger scale, there will be machines that can actually purify this water for whole communities. Maybe just beyond for brewery use, because as you do know, brewers. Some breweries actually use reverse osmosis water anyway, and then they add their own brewing salts in. But if those conversations are started and people are okay with it being in beer, maybe they'll start to see, maybe this is a better idea, that we should start using it to purify water for communities that are in severe drought.
Yeah, what do you say about that, Mark?
Well, I will say I think that's one of the reasons that this story has caught fire, is given the sustained and reoccurring droughts in the West and in the Southwest, and even about 2/3 of the state of Oregon is in a very serious drought right now, too. I think that's one of the reasons that this conversation has caught fire. And direct potable reuse, reusing purified water like this, is going to be driven by need. Orange County already does this. They provide very similar technology, except for they actually inject the water back into their aquifer and draw it out again. Singapore has a closed system now. Western Australia also has a similar high purity water system that's providing water to supplement drinking water. So this is, particularly as we look at the global scarcity of water and population growth, I think that this is going to become more and more common. We're here at Clean Water Services, we're producing 60 million gallons of cleaned water a day. It doesn't take that much more to get it to the level where it can be drinkable, if it's on the large enough scale and if it pencils out.
Now, let me ask you, because you talked about using water from a stream last year to brew the project. Could you is that safe practice for anybody anywhere? I mean, is it okay then to go to any stream or any river or any water source in the country or in the world and take water out and use it for beer? Or are there chemicals and elements and things like that may be in those kind of wild sources that won't be denatured by boiling, that you wouldn't want to use for beer?
Well, the technology that we threw the kitchen sink in terms of technology at this water, and frankly, you could take any water and put it through, reverse osmosis and ultrafiltration and ultraviolet disinfection, and come out with highly pure water. So you could throw it. It's expensive. It's pretty energy consumptive, but given the reoccurring droughts, for instance, in the Southwest, as I said before, this might be the best option.
But I'm thinking now, if brewers that are listening to this want to go camping or something and are next to a lake or next to a stream, like for instance, there's a city in Arkansas that at one point somebody had dumped some transformers, not the robots in disguise, but the electrical equipment that you find on the poles, but into a stream that went into a lake. And there were PCBs that were in the water. Would the brewing process and the boiling process be enough to make that water safe?
You're above my chemistry pay grade on some of those questions. Well, because source protection is so important. But what I would say is, we've talked a little bit. There's a brewer down in California, Half Moon Bay, that is also looking at this project, and they're actually working with NASA. And the folks at NASA down at the Ames Research Center are building equipment for how would you provide water on the way to Mars, or what sort of technology do you need to drop water purification systems into Iraq during in a war theater situation to clean water that may be incredibly dirty. And they seem to have, those smart scientists and chemists believe that they can clean any sort of water to drinking water standards.
I'm assuming that that the brewing process, boiling and fermentation and such, would be pretty good at neutralizing microbiological stuff, but maybe not all the chemicals and pharmaceuticals and such as that. I don't.
Oh, not at all.
I don't know
not
that either. But
and that's where the reverse osmosis process can remove so many of the issues we're looking at, which we call microconstituents. If they're hormones or if they're personal care products or those things, that is completely taken out of the equation by this 4-step process.
Now, Jeremie, where do we stand on this year's activities? Has the brewing already been done, or
oh no,
what's the schedule?
Right now, from what I understand, and Mark, cut me off if I'm wrong on this, I think it's going to happen sometime in August, September.
Yeah. So where we are right now is we are jumping to the last regulatory hoops to clear. The water's already been produced. It's in a regulatory limbo right now as we wait for the final approval from our regulatory agency. We've gotten that. They just have to shuffle some more papers, I think. We will release the water to the brewers around the 1st of June. That water will actually provide that to local brewing supply store here called Steinbart's. So we'll provide the water there, at which point OBC will take over in terms of releasing the water to brewers, with the idea that they will have 45 to 60 days to brew a beer or beers, depending upon how many different varieties they want to make, with the idea that we'll have all these beers available for judging probably in mid-August.
Cool. Good. Wow. I can't wait for it. I'm already in line, man. I want to use 100% effluent. EBV, if you will.
Well, it's certainly an interesting, fun experiment, and it brings to light all the concerns that we're having nowadays with clean water, and especially with more drought happening. Whether that's a temporary thing or a long-term thing, I guess we'll see. But it is a good way to call attention to this whole thing, and it's also a good way to call attention to homebrewing. So good on that, too.
Oh, indeed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm always, going back to what you'd asked, was there any roadblocks that you had to get through in order to use this water? I jumped at the chance. I just think that whenever these opportunities are presented to us, new ways of thinking about, your surroundings or what goes on in them, and the fact that, there's a severe problem that could be possibly solved by this newer technology. It's something that we hear, especially in the Northwest, but I'm sure all around the country, jump at. I had absolutely no idea before Clean Water Services brought this competition to the fore. I had absolutely no idea what this would entail, what it really means, and how important this technology could eventually become, especially with the droughts that are happening. And so, I really hope that a lot more people hear about this and pay some attention, more attention.
Well, excellent. Well, keep us posted, and let us know who wins and with what style and what names of the.
Oh, I'm taking first this year. I took second last year. I'm going to take first this year.
It's a throwdown.
You're damn right. I had the before the video went out, I have this shirt on that gives you a hint of the style of beer that I'm going to be brewing this year, but I can't quite say it. I'll show you the shirt after after the interview, but I'll give you a hint as to this is something I've been wanting to brew since my wife and I returned from our honeymoon in Europe in 2010. So,
well, excellent. This has been fun. Good luck on the competition, and I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thanks for your interest, James. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was an honor to be interviewed by you, James.
Aw, shucks. Thanks again to Mark and Jeremie. And happy birthday again to Fred Eckhart, whose birthday was a few days ago. I'm sure there'll be some tasty beers and some clever beer names coming out of that challenge. You should get extra points for the name. And I look forward to an update. In the meantime, if you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to James at basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our support link where you can throw a couple of bucks into the tip jar by subscribing financially to our podcasts. Be sure to check out our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. You can find them all on our site. You can check out our Basic Brewing shirts in the store as well. You can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com. And if there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order them online in our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We greatly appreciate the support there. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the link are Ministry of Magic Decal, Bathroom Quote, Humor, Toilet Funny Vinyl Sticker. Just search for that. And wooden antique handcrafted coasters decorated in rocking chair stand, set of 6 pieces. Very cool. Well, thanks again, everybody. Remember, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping. We greatly appreciate your support. Don't forget you can join the American Homebrewers Association and subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine through the associate links on basicbrewing.com. Well, that's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is brought by Kelly Dodson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.